Hello. Do you know what? I've been so... The problem is I'm wearing black, which means I've spent hours, feels like hours anyway, setting up this camera because the camera doesn't like black. And so I'm in a foul mood before we even start. So my inclinations always say, just do it. So how many children did we have on this first mocking? We had 72 children altogether. And that breaks up fairly evenly between girls and boys. Most people arrived promptly, and those that didn't, I think only one was more than 5 minutes late. The rest were. That's probably on the actual exam. Make sure that you arrive in plenty of time because the children feel hassled. You know everything will be all right, but the kids don't. We had one that didn't attend. We had no distraught children. This is good. Two that were a little bit tearful, but even they weren't sort of like tearful. They were just sort of, you could tell they'd had a little cry. There were probably others who had at home. 5 without pencils and rubbers. Mostly it's without rubbers. Did they really think they weren't going to make a mistake at any point during the exam? Number of snot goblins, 11 of them. The problem is when they're leaning forward, all the snot just goes bleh, and then they go so I'm sort of out dishing out the hankies, and very often they just like clutch them like a talisman, or just leave it there. The good Lord gave you sleeve for a reason. Off you go. Children who failed to write their name on the top, 15. I mean, they've been writing their name. I think I've ranted about this before, haven't I? They've been writing their name since they were 2. They can all do that. And that doesn't include the numbers that are just unintelligible. And I think that's because they are confusing writing their name, Joe Bloggs, nice and easy to write, with their signature. And the problem is names are much more adventurous now. So they have all the magnificent long names and foreign names and all sorts of names. But they're not easy to read, especially if the children have got daft handwriting. I'm sure there are better words, but you know what I mean. Children deaf to repeated instructions. Oh, come on, 27 of them. So I say 3 times before each paper, put horizontal or a diagonal line in the box next to the answer you want. Now, I'm sure you can understand what repeating that means. We won't bore ourselves by going, put a horizontal or a diagonal line in the box next to the answer. And yet they don't take any notice. They just put their answers somewhere else. And these aren't bad children. They're just not taking any notice. They just... Ooh. You could weep. What else? It's just that kind of thing. So they weren't writing their name. They're putting the answers somewhere else. They weren't staying in exam conditions. Or you say, do not turn your paper over till you're asked to do so. And they go, within seconds. Be quiet, please. Or time to settle down. Quiet. Exam conditions, that means no talking. And there might still be a little bit. You say, anybody that talks after this moment will get naught. And they're surprised. We say, no, me? Yes. Or they're just replying to someone. If your mouth is moving and noise comes out, you're talking. Doesn't matter who you're saying it to, you're talking. So don't. Toilet visits during the exam, 14. In the girls' real 11 plus, they'll give you an extra couple of minutes at the end, but only 2 minutes. So if you spend 10 minutes in the toilet, washing your hands really carefully, or doing whatever else it is you're doing, reading the toilet cleaner things in there, you won't get, you get 2 minutes. And the boys' exam, it could cost you the exam. In fact, it quite probably will, because even if you finish that section and you think, I've got time for a quick pee before we go on to the next section, if you come back and they've read the instructions for the next section, that's it, you're stuffed. So do practice being able to go for an hour without a wee and do all your tiddling in the breaks. If there is an issue, if you genuinely can't do this, and boys' bladders I think do tend to be a bit weaker than girls' bladders, I'm making that up, have a word with the school and let them know, and they will put them in a room closer to the toilets. It happens. Nobody wants a child to get upset or wet themselves. Look, see, that one hasn't been boldified, has it? Disruptive children, absolutely none. And we had 16 children who don't normally come to class. They come to other things. So they're doing the scholars course. And it was lovely to see them. They sort of come in. And it's good to see them. Right, scrolling down. So let's have a look at our overall results. Now, we are, in an ideal world, I want them all over 85% so that they can have a really bad day and still pass. Now, I made up those figures in the days when the pass rate was about 76%. It's a little bit lower these days. It's just over 70. And with both schools taking 160 children next year, I think it's going to be not much higher than 71%. So as you can see, some people are already there. But what we need to make sure from them is they're not getting complacent. I've seen children fail who thought, oh, that's fine, don't do anything, and it goes meow. What happens is they don't work, so they think it's in the bag. And then when they do work, they realise they can't do it, they get upset, and so they doubly don't do it. And so the big problem with these ones is getting complacent. A number of these children, if they'd just followed instructions, would have had higher marks. Have a look, we've got a naught, an overall naught here, and an overall naught here. Now, these may well have been very good marks. It's just they hadn't written their name, they wrote their names in the wrong places, they were talking, they turned their paper over before they were asked to do so, that sort of thing. And a number of these other lower marks are so because of that. But nobody, I would say you would be absolutely confident that they could guarantee a pass if they did the 11 plus tomorrow. So scroll ourselves down, the maths results now. Can you see all these ones like the teeth? These are children who got naught for varying reasons. The other ones, mostly you would find, so this is the crowd. Now most of these are going to go on to pass the 11 plus. Written workings. These ones, again, even if you were to look at their things, and trust me, I have, you'd say, look, if you'd used written workings, you'd have got this. It's normally written workings, reading the question carefully, and then, of course, there's the good old just didn't know how to do it, which is fair enough. We've still got a lot of time to fix that. The ones that are doing very well, what's kind of fun here is it may be easier for them to get an extra few marks, an extra 10% in the maths than it would be to, say, find it in the English. So because both schools, they take a sort of an average thing of everything, play to your strengths. I mean, absolutely, where something is weak, fix it, but play to your strengths. So if you're good at maths, go all out for 100%. I usually get someone every year that gets 100%. Now, the English exams, I have had, I think, three people that have had 100% in the English before, but that's rare. This is much more across the board, isn't it? There's less variation, not taking any notice. But by this time, they had began to realise that when I said it, I meant it. We've got one or two good marks here, which is rather pleasing. But for the most part, this is a problem of inexperience. Comprehension, the average mark was 10 out of 23, and that is referring back to the passage. Most children had about 25 minutes checking time in the English, and they would solemnly write 5 minutes. You think, who are you kidding? I was standing there jotting it down. And half of them, I reckon, were certainly 40% plus, weren't even reading the passage. It was 2 sides of A4, and it was and so it takes me time to walk around the room, and some of them are already on question 12 by the time I've done a circuit. So we're talking 4 minutes. That's nuts. Absolutely nuts. There's no way that you can have read it, and if you haven't read it, how can you comprehend it? For the girls' exam, the girls 11 plus, I would suggest that they do the closed test, punctuation, spelling elements first, and then they divide their time equally between the 2 comprehensions. The boys, you'll have your time allocated for each section. So read the passage and trundle your way through, because then you'll know where to look for the answers. It has to be said there are other tutors. Now, I'm sure are very good, that suggest exactly the opposite. They say don't read the passage. My observations of mock exams of children that do that don't do well. Make your own judgment call. Right, I was scrolling down. So here we are onto the verbal. Now once again we've got a number of children just not taking any notice. Now interesting, have a look. If we were to put a trend line in here, I think it would go up here, don't you? Normally it goes the other way down, it goes down. And I think that's partly because we've got more children not taking any notice. But of course when they say on the playground, actually Sarah said, don't do this, they begin to realise that they mean it. So these will have benefited from these children's experience. And yeah, they're doing all right. Again, this is the sort of 70% mark. So we want them above that. Not many children are there, but some certainly are. Keep them working on it. Again, if this is their strong point, and again, look at these children. Most of these are going to go on past the real 11 plus. We've given you directions, little videos. Just go over them all and redo them. Get your techniques right. Very often it's timing. Also watch out for things like not rubbing out your corrections. Not rubbing out corrections and not putting in guesses. We had literally hundreds and hundreds of empty squares. If you add up everybody's, and probably equally hundreds of ones that are badly rubbed out. Now explain, it goes through an optical character reader. It shines a light through. You must have your lines on these boxes. And if there are 2 lines and it wants 1, it just sees 2 lines and that's wrong. So rub out your corrections really carefully. It's like, you know, if somebody wipes down the table, just because they've wiped down the table doesn't mean it's clean. And it's the same with this. Just because you've rubbed your rubber over doesn't mean to say you've entirely erased it. So watch out for that. But mostly this is down that there are the maths element where you've just got to be really on your toes with mental arithmetic. So do the daily maths sheet. There are the Cody kind of ones where you've just got to point and count and be very systematic. So do that. There are, what else have we got? Oh, they're the sort that, you know, where you can find the hidden 4-letter word or the 3-letter word in the middle. Now, some of these do and don't turn up, but it will always help with spelling, and spelling turns up in a number of different ways in this exam. So just learn how to do those and make all these lists. They help. Those lists will fix it. The vocabulary kind of questions, which largely takes up the rest, are tricky. So just read, listen to story tapes. That will also help with the comprehension. Oh, talking about back to the maths here. A lot of the problems here, I reckon a lot of children are missing about 20% because they're not making things. They're not making nearly enough things. Their spatial awareness and skills are rubbish. My generation spent all our school afternoons making and doing, and we spent a lot of time at home sticking boxes together. Kids don't do that anymore, but the examiners who are writing the papers are my age, and they assume that's what children can do. And the questions will be based on that. Also things like catching buses. So have them making. Lots of making, catching buses, going out buying. In fact, somewhere on the website there's a list of things to do if you're in year 4. Do that list. Because these are the core skills that the examiners presume you have, so they can understand the maths. Right, going back to the English. Vocabulary. Get out story tapes, borrow them from the library. Actually, the library ones don't always work. They're not that good because you get to the 3rd disc and then find there's a scratch and you can't listen to it. But listen to story tapes of the older sort and then make things. Lots of making. It will, cure a multitude of sins. And it will, of course, help with your vocabulary, because if you don't know what dappled means, you haven't got a hope of seeing, what other word means the same thing. Now, and that brings us on to the non-verbal. And as you know, we do the non-verbal in the holiday classes, and the higher ones have done, most of them have done a lot of holiday class stuff. Some of these, they got 0, so they don't actually feature. These were, I think, mostly boys this year. Then probably 1 or 2 girls. because they would be preparing for other exams where there's non-verbal reasoning. So that's that really. Come to the holiday classes for non-verbal. It does turn up, and I think I need to do some internet classes on it, so nag me. And that's about all. The first mock is all about getting rid of the rubbish miles away from the exam. Now, there will be some repeat offenders who didn't write their name this time who won't write their name next time. They are a delightful year group, absolutely delightful, but they do not believe me when I say, if you don't write your name, you will get naught. They just don't hear me when I say, write your answers here. They are nice children and they are used to having people fix the problems. I came from the generation where your parents showed their love by giving you a quick slap. That doesn't happen anymore. And so they're not used to having these sort of like, if I say clear boundaries, it sounds like they're naughty, and they're not. But they're certainly not used to having absolute deadlines and, you know, this far and absolutely no further. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but there are times when people really mean it and the consequences will ensue if you're not following instructions, and this is one of them. So I hope that helps. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for letting me talk 11 plus, because I'll talk 11 plus till the cows come home. And I look forward to seeing you at the next mocks. Thank you. Bye bye.